There's an old saying that goes, those who cannot remember the past are condemned to repeat it. And while this saying is most commonly attributed to British historian Lord Acton, he never actually said it. The actual origin of this saying goes all the way back to 1848 and a Scottish philosopher by the name of Thomas Carlyle. He wrote, "The history of the world is but the biography of great men. It is more the study of last years than of years long gone. We see only the most recent links in the chain of causation that binds us together with the past." So just wanted to point that out because I believe in giving credit where it's due. With that said though, I do think that Lord Acton had the right idea when he famously wrote, "Power tends to corrupt. Absolute power corrupts absolutely." We all know that life can be painful sometimes, and there will be times when we're faced with suffering and heartache. But what we do with that pain is up to us. Either we let it define us or we use it to motivate us to become better. That's why it's a good thing to keep in mind that sometimes what feels like a curse can actually turn out to be a blessing in disguise. For example, my friend always struggled with his weight, but no one ever said anything to him about it until he joined the army. One day during a physical training exercise, one of his drill sergeants told him, "You need to lose some weight, soldier. You're not fit enough to be here." Of course, this hurt his feelings and he started to cry, but his sergeant didn't stop there. He continued, "I don't want to see you moping around. Go hit the treadmill and get rid of that gut of yours." My friend did as he was told, and over time he got in shape. But this wasn't the end of it. His drill sergeant will continue to motivate him to improve himself physically and mentally. And sure enough, my friend graduated top of his class at boot camp and went on to become one of the best soldiers in his unit. What if his drill sergeant had just yelled at him and insulted him without offering any guidance? Sure, he might have lost weight out of anger and shame, but he probably would not have channeled that energy in a healthy way and could have ended up getting himself hurt or worse. But because his drill sergeant gave him constructive criticism, he was able to use that pain as fuel to transform himself from someone who felt inadequate into someone who felt confident and capable. You see, we all have areas in our lives that we could stand to improve on. Maybe we're overweight or underachieving or just not living up to our potential. But the problem is that most people don't want to hear the truth about themselves. They prefer to live in their own little fantasy worlds where everything is perfect and there's no room for improvement. But this is a big mistake because when we refuse to listen to constructive criticism, we're essentially closing ourselves off from the possibility of growth and self-improvement. Take, for example, the person who refuses to learn a new skill because they're afraid of looking stupid, or the individual who doesn't want to hear feedback because it makes them feel inadequate. These are the types of people who will never reach their full potential because they're too proud and stubborn to admit that they need help. So then why is it that so many people are so resistant to constructive criticism? Well, it's because they don't understand that it's not about them as individuals. Constructive criticism is not a judgment of character. It's simply a way of providing feedback so that someone can improve. When we focus on the feedback rather than ourselves, we're able to take the criticism in stride and use it to make positive changes. This is what separates successful people from unsuccessful people. Successful people are able to take criticism and use it to fuel their success. Unsuccessful people dwell on the criticism and let it hold them back. It's not always easy to take constructive criticism, but it's important to remember that it's not a bad thing. It's simply an opportunity for growth. We should embrace constructive criticism and use it to make positive changes in our lives. But sometimes constructive criticism isn't given so constructively. Sometimes it comes across as nothing more than mockery or an insult. And that was certainly true in the case of the protagonist from the story that I shared earlier. But even though his drill sergeant was tough on him, he still managed to find a way to use that negativity as fuel to improve himself. In fact, this is something that I've seen happen again and again throughout my own life. The most successful people that I know were once outcasts or underdogs who were constantly made fun of. And instead of letting that get them down, they used it as motivation to prove everyone wrong. Take, for example, Steve Jobs. He was mocked relentlessly throughout his childhood for being adopted. But instead of letting that hold him back, he used it as fuel to become the wildly successful entrepreneur that we know today. Or consider Oprah Winfrey. She was abused as a child and made fun of for her weight, but she didn't let that stop her from becoming one of the most successful talk show hosts of all time. Then there's Stephen Hawking. He was ridiculed for being disabled, But that didn't stop him from making groundbreaking discoveries in the field of physics. Now, these are obviously extreme examples, but the point remains the same. No matter how much other people may try to tear you down, if you have the drive and determination to succeed, you can accomplish anything that you set your mind to. Now, before I go on, I want to make it clear that I'm not suggesting that we should actively seek out pain or suffering. The point of this story is simply to illustrate that sometimes what feels like a curse can actually end up being a blessing in disguise. When we're faced with adversity, it's up to us to decide how we're going to respond. Are we going to let it defeat us, or are we going to use it to make us stronger? So the next time you find yourself in a situation that seems hopeless, remember the story of the underdog who was constantly made fun of, but who ultimately triumphed in the end. Don't let anyone tell you that you can't achieve your dreams. In fact, use their doubts as fuel to prove them wrong. Because in the end, it's not the people who think they're better than you that hold you back. It's you when you start believing them. Do you have a story of your own that you can relate to this lesson? If so, please share it in the comments below. I am always amazed by the stories that people share, and I'm sure that others will be inspired by your story as well. And hey, before you go, if you're benefiting from these videos, please share them with your friends and family. And if you haven't already, please take a moment to subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video.